and welcome to Campaign's latest online briefing. We're calling this an app for that, brand engagement and mobile development. I'm Austin Allison, I'm the editor of Campaign Middle East, and you can check out everything about Campaign at campaignme.com. Also on our social channels, we've just launched a TikTok channel. They've not managed to make me do a lip sync to it yet, but my colleagues are trying to twist my arm into that. And we're all over the web and webinars, podcasts, and of course the print magazine. It's great to see you all. Well, great to see all your names. A lot of familiar names and a load of new ones as well. And thanks a lot for taking the time to join us for what's going to be a couple of really interesting conversations today. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, Huawei. I think you all know Huawei, and Huawei's App Gallery is one of the top 3 app marketplaces globally. It's available in more than 170 countries and regions with over 530 million monthly active users, and we'll be finding out a load more about Huawei, a load more about all sorts of things about brand engagement as well. So I've got 2 panels today. In the second one, I'm going to be joined by, and so you're going to have my face and voice haunting you for a while. In the second one, I'm going to be joined by 3 creatives to discuss the ads that gave great brand engagement and the ones that they think are overrated from the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. So look forward to some great work there, some creative criticism and some insight and debate. Before that, though, our first panel is called, our first panel is about online engagement and brand engagement and mobile development. So we're going to be looking at how brands can use apps to leverage their consumers' I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, and I want to buy moments. And for this, I'm joined by 3 experts from slightly sort of different spheres, which is going to be really interesting pulling them together. I'm going to be joined by, so I'd like to introduce my panel now. I'm joined by Ahmed Eldameri, who is the App Gallery Senior Operations Manager for the region at Huawei. I'm joined by, hi Ahmed, I'm joined by Joe joined by Joe Franklin, who is the co-founder of Steppy. And I'm joined by Amr Aboladin, which is, did I pronounce your surname right, Amr? I'm sure I butchered it. Who's the group head of growth and MarTech for Landmark Group. So it's really good to see you guys here. And as I say, first of all, I'm just going to ask you very quickly just to give me sort of a 1 sentence about who you are and sort of why what you do is relevant to brand engagement. And I'll start with you, if I may, Ahmed.
Sure.
Tell me about, yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Ahmed. I'm an App Gallery Senior Operations Manager for Middle East and Africa region for Huawei App Gallery. And brand engagement is very important for us because it helps us to connect with our potential customers or current users on an emotional level rather than just a transactional level, and we can build with them a 2-way communication throughout that.
Brilliant. Amr, you are at Landmark Group. What do you do, and what does brand engagement mean to you?
Okay, I am the group head of growth and MarTech. So we are focused on everything related to e-commerce, omni-channel, how we can make the challenge of everyone speaking about how we can understand the off-stores or offline transactions, online transactions. And in e-commerce, we focus totally on, let's say, how to acquire new customers and what the most important of it, how to retain those customers or how to build the retention on this. As we know that we own one of the biggest Shukran loyalty program in the Middle East, which is non-food. So we are focusing on customer retention through loyalty points, extra stuff, what we can offer our customers, and the most important, because we want people to come and have a good experience for us, and how they can buy from us not just once and leave, how they can buy from us multiple times per year through over our 8 or 9 brands we have it in the region.
I was about to say, just for anyone who's been living in a cave for the last half century or whatever, what are some of the brands that fall under Landmark Group?
Sorry, could you please repeat again?
Sorry, what are some of the brands that fall under Landmark Group? What are some of your brands?
We have two verticals. We have the furniture and fashion side. Furniture is actually Home Center and Homebox. On the other side, we have the fashion side. We have Center Point. We have Max Fashion. We have Splash. We have Lifestyle. We have Baby Shop for baby verticals, which is part of it. Furniture as well, and we have Shoe Mart and Shoe Express.
And last but definitely not least, Joe, you are the co-founder of Steppy. What is Steppy?
Hi, Austin. Thank you. So, yeah, my name is Joe Franklin. I'm one of the co-founders of Steppy. Steppy is a health and wellbeing platform for organizations and for individuals. So we do a couple of things, mainly being we build employee wellness programs for corporate clients, and we run community initiatives for individuals. So our mission is to make the inactive population of the UAE and the Middle East more active, and we do that through rewards, challenges, etc. So that's what we do here at Steppy.
Excellent. Now, we're talking about brand engagement today, and I suppose that one of the most obvious questions is, and it may seem so obvious that it would be that we don't need to ask it, but I think we do, is what is brand engagement? Amar, I'm going to go to you because you're involved with a massive retailer, and I think that you've got an awful lot of customers and an awful lot of brands. What is brand engagement, and why is it important?
Yeah, I will simplify it in 3 ways. First of all, brand engagement is not only that the customer come by from you 2 times or 3 times or 4 times. It's a lot of factors combined together. First of all, it's his experience, okay? It's, let's say, his net promoter score, his NPS, what he's rating about our service. It's e-commerce or even any business is not only a product or buying or selling, it's about the experience itself. We believe on the e-commerce side, the journey starts from delivery, not before delivery, not on the website itself. So it's the most important that user can have an easy delivery, fast delivery, so he can give you good net promoter score. His customer satisfaction is very important. The way he can refund and return and get back his money is very easy. Exchange is very easy. And this, if the customers see actually one of this, if the customer is able to see all of those very simple, he will be able to buy and trust that if he have a wrong shoes, you will do it smoothly. This is a part of operation. The other side is related to the marketing side, which will be how to understand what this customer needs. Is he part of the family? Does he have kids? What the right ad to show him in which time? And the last thing will be the MarTech or the marketing BI, which will be understanding really who is this customer, what he's looking for exactly, what is his retention rate, what is customer lifetime value, is he more, what his persona as example. So it's not only about we need to make sure that customer buy from us 3-4 times, it's the entire journey from customer support, delivery, fast website, easy refunds, and not to be spammy as well, that he don't see you all over the place and you don't need him. So this is actually what I believe on the brand engagement itself, and very simplified, he will come back to you. It build a trust.
Now, Ahmed, you were definitely nodding your head there when Amma was talking about experience. You work with Huawei and Huawei Apps Gallery, and so I mean, amongst apps, as we all know, there's a vast range of experiences. How sort of important is the user experience, and how does this sort of transfer in mobile, do you find?
Well, often, let me give you a little bit of a brief of what we do at Huawei. At Huawei, we're obsessed with our customer experience, and we always aim to build an end-to-end solution to our customers, not only providing them with the phones, for example, but providing them with the phones and the services that they can use on that phone. And with that comes a lot of level of brand engagement and things that we need to do to keep always on the user on top of mind, providing them with a very good experience, and not only providing them with an emotional level of transactional level only, but also to have a certain emotional level with our customers, stay on top of their mind, be consistently there for them whenever they need us. Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean, traditionally, and again, I'm thinking of things like sort of Landmark Group in the past. It would be an experience of going into a store. You might have sort of loyalty. There'd be a loyalty program that wasn't in the past, that wasn't nearly as advanced as the Shukran loyalty program. You'd be filling out forms, but a lot of the experience would be in store. Again, I'm going to stick with. I'll come to Ahmed about that, but I'll stick with Ahmed just now. How do you move from this sort of in-store bricks and mortar physical experience of a brand to an online, and especially not even online, mobile experience? You know, we're taking a whole sort of surrounding you experience to putting something in the palm of your hand. How does that translate?
Yeah, sure. So as you referred to, a lot of brand engagement used to happen physically, whether in a retail store or hypermarket. And it was done only when there is a footfall in that place. Now things are very different. Now any brand is very close to their customer through an arm reach. With one click of a button, they can be there for their users. And this can be done through different digital channels, for example, like social media, brands' websites, and brands' apps and emails. Even social media and websites now are digital first or mobile first, not only web first. So I think for any brand to have a perfect brand engagement strategy, they should focus on their user journey and try to pinpoint which touch points are relevant to which part of the user journey their user are in, and use that channel to effectively build on any objective they have. Let it be create top of mind awareness, increase loyalty, as Amr was referring to, or create brand promoters, or have a better NPS score.
And so I'll come back to something that you said there about about a perfect experience, and I'll actually come back and challenge that and see whether it is possible to have a sort of a perfect brand engagement experience. But I'd like to go to Joe just now and ask you how does an app like Steppy generate brand engagement? I think we were chatting earlier, and you explained that actually if you give me a bit of background on what Steppy is, and maybe what Steppy was when it started, and whether that's changed, and how you're generating brand engagement, and how that journey to brand engagement has perhaps changed.
Absolutely. So when I was explaining earlier that when we launched Steppy, we very much focused on the B2C side of the business, so engaging with consumers, mainly through a rewards model that saw them exchanging their steps for rewards from different brand partners. A similar model to the entertainer, but underpinned by physical activity. It was interesting when we started the business, you have to start from day zero. So we focused heavily on brand partnerships with regional players such as Noon, the likes of Huawei, to give our product more credibility. So that there's brand experience that goes that way in terms of partnerships we signed. As the business progresses and you get more consistency, I think the brand engagement side, it goes two ways. So we now, being a digital product and being a mobile app, you live in people's pockets, and it's a very personal place to operate. So we're very mindful around how we now engage with our users. So you can't just be gung-ho sending notifications all day. You need to be mindful of how the engagement goes two ways. So in terms of how we pivoted out of the B2C model, we now have a stronger focus on the organization side of what we do on the employee wellness programs. And again, the engagement and the partnerships that we've driven from that, it all becomes part of our brand experience for our users and our clients. So it's important across many different metrics, and it definitely evolves, and it will continue to evolve for us as well.
What sort of metrics are your clients looking for when they sign up to Steppy? Not just the users, but you were saying that you work with sort of bigger brands. What are they wanting to get out of their partnerships with Steppy?
So in terms of the partners and the retail partners we work with, they use our platform as a marketing platform. So that they can list rewards on the Steppy app, and users can then redeem their steps for them rewards. So effectively, it's a lead generation tool. The use case for the corporate clients, they want to run employee wellness programs, and they want us to help firstly identify how physically active or inactive their employees are. And then we build long-term programs to make the inactive more active. And that's kind of now grown into all-round health and wellness. It started with physical activity, but there's a big demand now for, you know, wellness, mental health, mental wellness. So it's a space that's evolving, and it's driven heavily with technology advancements. So as technology advances and we can capture more data points, the more meaningful these programs become.
Now, I guess that I think you mentioned that you're partnered with Huawei, and I guess that some of those data points will come from the sort of Huawei. I know that Huawei has wearables and things, so a lot of it will come from that. How does your partnership with Huawei work? What's the sort of benefits of partnering with an ecosystem like Huawei?
So the partnership we have with Huawei is very straightforward. We work with the team here in Dubai, and we make sure that we have a strong presence in the Huawei app gallery. So within our business, the user base is slightly swayed into iOS users on the Apple platform. It's about 60-40, so 40% of our users use Android, and out of that 40%, you know, a significant amount of them, and increasing every month, come in on the Huawei platform. So we made additions to our app, and we did an API integration with Huawei wearables, specifically for the Huawei version of the Steppy app. So for us, there's now 3 key app stores that we operate in: the App Store with Apple, Google Play, and the Huawei app gallery. And it's vitally important to be in all 3.
And Ahmed, when we're talking about things like the sort of integration with Huawei wearables, presumably this sort of is a nice sort of two-way push. That if I know that my my Huawei watch will work with Steppy, that's a sort of a good incentive for me to come and sort of buy deeper into the Huawei ecosystem as a consumer.
Yeah, definitely. And it builds more into what I was referring to earlier as giving an end-to-end user experience, where we try to provide the consumer with everything he needs in his daily life from that aspect of that angle.
Now, Amr, you're partnered with Huawei as well, aren't you? How would a partnership like that work, and how does that benefit your, or how does your work with Huawei work towards your brand engagement?
Yeah, we always say, so one of the things we always believe on, you go where the customer is. Okay, so if you told me tomorrow, as an example, I would like to make an integration with Viper as a messenger as well, I will never do it. I go where the customer is. So I will go to, let's say, to WhatsApp.
Viper.
I'm speaking about the market. So I will speaking about this market, I will go there. So for Huawei, for us, we are going for Huawei. Actually, we need to partner with Huawei, because now, if we're speaking now, we already launched all the applications. We are not working with Huawei only to launch app gallery. We are going to use all their advertising tool, people search, everything, because Huawei built a full standalone term of advertising and term of something called merchant management. They have like Huawei merchant management, so you can show the ads and how the ads show to you as well. So we saw that Huawei, as overall our devices contribute to around 12 to 13% of our total revenue, not our total traffic. So imagine if Huawei decided to build, and 13% is a very huge number. And consider Landmark is the biggest group e-commerce in the region. So we are the biggest in terms of sales in e-commerce in the region, Landmark actually. So 13% is a very huge number. So imagine we would like to invest on Huawei, because that's why a full team of technology decided in the last 6-7 months to build Huawei app gallery, because we see a potential. If we don't see a potential, or let's say it's 1, 2, 3%, who's not going to invest? We believe that we're going to invest on anything is going to move our revenue more than 5%. We are here speaking about 14%. And Huawei, we can see that contribution of devices is going growing day after day, month after month. So we actually are going to Huawei because we believe here is a customer. So that's the same example when I was speaking earlier about if we're going to find a customer in Steppy, we are going to Steppy because we find the people who run as example. But as example, the same for Huawei. So I think what Huawei have done now is very great for us, but it's a new build. We are all of us ourselves, Huawei, getting the experience to understand how to get the most out of it.
And what are the Ahmed, how old is the app gallery? Sort of what sort of stage are we at in its development? It's very young, and so so first of all, what stage are we at, and what are the sort of developments that we're seeing? As Anna said, it's a sort of a learning experience. So what stage are we at in that learning experience?
So I wouldn't say that App Gallery is very young. We have been in the market for no, it's completely fine. We have been in the market for the few years. However, our growth has started to exponentially grow right around 2019. What we do is that we try to provide developers with innovative technology to push their boundaries and enhance their user experience and ultimately see uplift on their all KPIs. We have a unique HMS core that allows the application to be easily integrated across different devices, delivering more convenience to them and to the end user as well, and a smoother experience overall.
So what sort of KPIs are developers coming to you looking for? What sort of things are they? I think that Abba mentioned that obviously revenue, he gets a big chunk of revenue to you. I mean, I'd imagine that's the crowning glory, but what other things are people sort of measuring themselves on?
So our app developers come from different shapes and sizes. Some of them would be looking for revenue. Some of them would be looking for increasing their downloads or installs, their daily active users, depending really on the app nature. So if you have, for example, some sort of a game, it would be looking to increase its in-app purchases a lot. If you have an app like a music app or a streaming app, they might be increase their ads. So it's a different sort of revenue stream that's coming for the app. However, they'll be looking mainly for increasing their installs, increasing their product reviews on the platform as well to help them iterate and make their product better.
And what sort of conversations do you then have with the likes of, let's sort of pit you and sort of put you and Joe together about sort of discussing how to boost Steppy's presence, for example? What were the sort of conversations that you'd have with a brand like Steppy?
With our support might include different areas. For an app like a Steppy, for example, we can have a technology support in the integration and the process of integrating the app through App Gallery. We could be having a discussion about how to help an app like Steppy to reach its audience in different markets or in a specific market and boost their user acquisition. And finally, we can help them to run dedicated campaigns through the Huawei ecosystem to grow their app.
Yeah, and we've done exactly all of them. So the team at Huawei offered us development support in terms of doing the app gallery version of the Steppy app. We've recently done a version which is now available on the new Harmony OS, which is on device. So Steppy is now available as an on-watch app as well. And we've run a number of awareness campaigns, and we do a number of public challenges on the community side of the Steppy app, promoting Huawei products, positioning them within the health and fitness space. And in return, it's been a bit of a partnership where we've had increased presence within the app gallery. So again, the question around what do the apps want from the partnerships? An app like Steppy would be very much driven on downloads, installs, and that comes from presence and how much you're promoted within the app gallery.
So it seems, I mean, you were saying, Ahmed, earlier that that the app gallery sort of really started to see pick up in around 2019, and I wonder whether it seems to me that the likes of Steppy and the likes of I think that's why I was saying a young platform. It's not a young platform, but let's say it's in its adolescent growth spurt. So you've got quite a sort of an advantage for the likes of Steppy, who are sort of really making themselves felt on it, and the likes of Landmark, who are obviously sort of leveraging their presence there now. How do you think that's going to sort of develop as, I mean, I assume that more competitors will come in and things. And so there's going to be a sort of a move from, you know, as you have more competitors coming in, and also how will you balance that with also the sort of the better learnings that I think Amma was talking about, sort of the measurements and things coming in. So on one side, you've got more competitors, on the other side, you've got more expertise coming in on the learnings. I don't think that actually made a lot of sense what I was saying.
I would appreciate if you rephrased it actually.
Yeah, I was thinking, meanwhile, I'd like to rephrase it, yes. Just listen to me waffle for ages. No, so what I was thinking is that at the moment, the partners that you've got are working very, very tightly with you. And they're really at an advantage because you're giving them a lot of sort of unique support. As you get more partners on, that will necessarily get a bit diluted. But also on the flip side of that, they're also going through sort of more of a learning curve. And as you get more partners in, that learning curve will be, you know, there'll be a lot more learnings that you'll be passing on to people. So I'm basically wondering about what the strategy is for growth with your partners. And then once you've told me that, I'll go to Steppy or I'll go to Joe and Amma and sort of ask what their plans are for growth on the Huawei platform.
Yeah. So something I might like to add here before I answer the question. So for example, the growth levels that we're seeing now at Huawei App Gallery are unprecedented. We have doubled our year-on-year growth, for example, in 2020, just for the first 5 months of 2021.
In terms of what? In terms of what metric?
In terms of developer registration and number of apps that are available in App Gallery, number of apps distribution as well. All these numbers have actually surpassed the yearly growth that we had in 2020. So we are actually going toward that, what you're referring to, and we are in that situation as we speak. But what we have in Huawei is that wherever we have a quality app, because we care much more about the quality of the apps we have on App Gallery rather than the quantity, we tend to give them the level of support that they might need to grow their business on App Gallery. Yeah.
Okay. And I think the other thing that I was touching on is the sort of the measurements and the learning curve of getting the measurements and the metrics there. That at the moment, Amma was saying that he's sort of got teams who are sort of learning to use the sort of the metrics and the integration and things. Presumably that's going to pick up as well, as you're going to have more and more experts emigrating out into the wild, as it were. How do you see that? How do you see that growing in terms of sort of the metrics and how they plug into other measurement systems?
So we have different kits that can be integrated on Huawei App Gallery, and those kits can help any app developer to get whatever matrix that they need from their app. We have, like, for example, analytic kits that gives in-depth analysis of the app and the app usage to the app developer. Also, we have a lot of documentation that's available online for any small or a big app developer to go through, and tutorials to see how they can do a specific set of integration or something for the app.
So you meant, again, I'm going to go to Amma to talk about growth again, because I think that you mentioned in our sort of pre-webinar conversation, you mentioned that you've actually had quite good growth recently in terms of your Shukran loyalty program. Would you mind just sort of touching on that and why you think that might be? Am I right? Yeah, first of all, stop me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, right. So actually, everyone in the market, it will not be us or not be only Landmark, all the other businesses as well. They saw a huge growth on terms of new customers. So whatever you expected in 3 years, it came in 1 year on the pandemic. So if you're planning to get, let's say, 3 million new users in 3 years, you found them, all of them come on 1 year. So the company strategy totally changed because we have, as we say, the biggest non-food loyalty program. So the business itself decided to see they need to integrate more people to make people more have a single view of customer or single sign-on, as everyone know. So when you go to our apps, how we can move you to be a more shukran logged in, not just a guest user. And to be honest, the company succeeded to increase those numbers like 2 times or 3 times. So you can convert a lot of your customers to be a shukran customer, because the second you put him in a shukran customer, he become getting loyalty, getting points, have different level of even promotions, and even to show him or classify him or to segment him with a different way because he's coming and purchasing for us. So I don't think the next years it will be more about acquisition for the old businesses. It will be mostly about retention, because all of us got all the customers we want on those 2, 3 on last pandemic. So now it's the game how to keep those customers and how to retain the customers that you lost or give you a bad scoring on the pandemic, because customers don't care at the end of the day. If it was pandemic, not pandemic, they was upset that you don't deliver the orders, even they know they don't understand the regulations of the country. They don't understand that you can do X, Y, and Z. So the next year is, or the last year and this year and next year, it's all about loyalty and retention and how to retain the customers. And that's why Shukran as a landmark group come in the very, very important place, because we are trying to move all our customers to be a Shukran customers, and you log in through your Shukran, collect points, and how can you use your points all over the place. So it's a retention and brand engagement realm now, more than customer acquisition realm. We still focus on customer acquisition for cost, for sure, and we focus on the cost as well, but it's more to maintain or enhance the customers you already built on the last pandemic, and that's exactly what Landmark is doing now.
That's really interesting. And there's 2 things that I want to follow up on that. And I'll ask you one, and then I'll actually slip over to Joe for the second one. So the second one is I'm going to ask about the difference between acquisition and retention, which I think can be definitely 2 different things, and ask Joe sort of how he's looking at that. But the first thing that I'd like to ask is, why did your users grow? I mean, I think that some of the answers might be quite obvious. Some of it might be pandemic. And what can you attribute to the pandemic, and why? And what can you attribute to what you were doing right or differently, and why? So why was it so successful?
Okay, so we have to say, first of all, pandemic have accelerated everyone in the market. So everyone on the market, pandemic accelerated them. Some people was able to handle the pandemic in terms of operation, and Landmark is one of them. Was able to deliver, or to at least deliver all the most of the promises they have in the pandemic. And the second thing is very simple, that we don't just we're trying to make more sales and more sales and more sales. We are looking at the customer as 3 sides, from, as we said last time, his satisfaction, his net promoter score, what he sees, the website, the delivery timing. And one of the most important thing on the pandemic was the content, to be honest, or how I can say it, the communication. So we was communicating on each part, on each page. We have an update every day, even every 6 hours. The stores are going to shut down. We are not able to deliver X, Y, and Z. So the communication was very good, to be honest.
How are you sending that communication out? Is that through social?
Website,
is it through
on the website, on the checkout? Before you check out, I don't fake you. I don't tell you. I don't keep the message I'm going to deliver from 2 to 3 days. And after you place the order, I tell you, sorry, we're in pandemic. I will going to deliver it after 14 days.
We all know that one. Yes.
Yeah. Landmark, really, content team have done a great job. Our communication team have done a great job. How we can communicate all of this, starting from push notifications, starting from in-app communication, starting from creating dedicated pages on the checkout, give you a highlight due to the pandemic. So we are always trying not to overpromise. We're trying to tell the reality for the customers. Others didn't do this. They just kept without changing the content, receive in 2 days, and they never received on 40 and 50 days. That's why I think one of the main success on the pandemic was the communication. and we was like, it was not like we was not isolated. We didn't place let's say solo teams. No, whenever we are pushing advertising, we check with the shipping team, with the logistics team. What is the limit? Every day we was putting a limit, and we was putting a capping to what we can deliver and what we cannot deliver. So it was not only marketing, it was not only logistics, it's a combination of all together. Because when we come in the morning, the chief operating officer come and say on a daily meeting in the morning, our capacity, let's say, is not maximum than 25,000 orders per day. Next day, it's not more than 30,000. It's not more than 15,000. And it's by country, by everything. And there's some cities was blocked totally, as example in Saudi Arabia, while other cities was open. So it was very challenging on the communication itself. So I think it's not only a marketing communication, it's not martech analysis or logistics alone or communication alone. It was a combination of entire Landmark worked as a one team to be able to deliver what they can deliver the best for the customer without over promising and keeping to the point. That's why I believe Landmark was able to cross this wave of pandemic with a very, very good repetition, even we growing like 2 times, 3 times every year.
That's very interesting. And it's interesting that you say that it sounds to me that it's as much down to, like you say, communication as actual performance, as it were, that if you can't deliver to somebody, if somebody wants something delivered in 3 days and you can't deliver for 20 days, don't tell them that it's coming to them tomorrow. If I think managing expectations is the term, isn't it?
Because a same example, if you say 2 to 3 days, after 2 days, your call center will be loaded with calls, right? Right? So just tell them, guys, it's after a week. So it will be after a week, which is the best time. No one will call you until a week. But if you think that you will be able to sell it faster and don't give the customers the reality, at the end it's firing back on you.
Sure. How did you find that things went over the pandemic, and how do you accumulate customers, and how do you then keep them? And I think it'd be especially interesting with you because you talked about you almost pivoted from primarily B2C to B2B. Might be grossly oversimplifying things, but what are people looking for you? What do people appreciate in terms of brand engagement from you, and what brings them in and what keeps them in for you?
Yeah, so in terms of the pivot, it was when we launched the business, we always had B2B and B2C opportunities in front of us. I think that the pivot was more of a refocus on the opportunity in B2B. So we acquire consumers in 2 ways. The B2B side of our business, our customer is corporate clients, and it's kind of supply and demand. As employee well-being and employee health has become more of a sort of hot topic, potentially on the back of the coronavirus pandemic, more corporates are looking for platforms and technology where they can run these programs and extract tangible data that shows what the return on investment is. So what do the clients look for? They look for a product that A, it's easy to use, and B, that they can get tangible results from. So, that's what we strive to become, and the technology platform that we've built and continue to build will always focus on usability and data. In terms of the community side, we offer a product that's completely free. There's no charge. People can download our app and there's no cost. And they can join public challenges, win prizes, save on their shopping at noon.com, etc. So how do we engage with them and retain them? It's about usability again, and you're as good as your product is. So you'll see consumers these days are very fickle. If you go on the App Store or the ratings of the Google Play Store or Huawei App Gallery, people are confident to give good or bad reviews. So it's about giving a strong product that you're confident with, that people enjoy, and then they'll keep coming back. You can't overcompensate with a bad product with good service. So it ultimately, in our space, it comes down to the product as how good you are.
Ahmed, would you agree that it sounds to me like the reviews on the app on the marketplace are really on the app gallery are really crucial? Is that the case, or are they?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I think now brands have sort of a responsibility to build a lot of feedback channels for their users to be able to use. Rather, that feedback channel is on an distribution platform like App Gallery, or it's a phone line that they can call. Because now, as you were saying, feedback or complaint is spread like wildfire, especially in the age we live in, with everyone has a social media account, everything can share their experience, whether it's positive or negative, throughout the world in a matter of minutes. I think brands need to be very careful in the way they build those channels and those feedback channels, and not take this feedback lightly. When they have a negative feedback for something they need to do, they need to reiterate whether it's the service or the UI of an app, whatever, and they need to really think about whatever feedback they're getting from their users.
And from our experience as well, consumers are more likely to leave a negative feedback on a negative experience than a positive feedback on a positive one. And that's just human nature. People are quick to complain and not as quick to praise.
So how do, again, going back to Acrid and the sort of App Gallery reviews, how do the brands that do it well, how do the apps that do it well, how do they deal with those negative complaints, and how do they amplify the positive reviews?
Well, I think, yeah, sorry, you wanted to continue the question?
No, I was wondering, yeah, how do you mitigate for the bad and amplify the good?
Yeah, I think any brand should have a strategy on the way that they handle these type of reviews. First, they need to have a team in place to answer these reviews quickly. You don't want to leave someone hanging for 2-3 days who told you, for example, that there is a problem with an order that they made. That's the first thing. So they need to have a quick response, so a quick two-way communication between them and the app or the brand. And second thing, to solve the problem as well, not just to try to talk or mitigate the review and take it offline with the consumer, but as well solve the problem instantly, and then take measurements to see how this problem shouldn't happen again, and put in place some strategies and things to stop this problem from happening again or occurring again with different users.
So it's the sort of the mobile version of Amma's sort of working the reality and the messaging together, and sort of addressing both simultaneously.
I would just like to add something here. So
please.
I agree 100% what he said. It's like really the customer, only most of the customer go and rate you when they're upset. If the customer is very, very happy from you, he will never go and write a rating and write exactly what happened. So that's why we are using different tools to be able to know exactly the moment he's happy about. That's why we double checking with the customer. Is he's happy as the checkout, after the process of delivery, after the shipping? So we keep asking him. When we find out there's a process have been done, or the delivery from the order time was only 2 days, so we go and ask him. Here is the customers we found out they start to interact. So we found out, as an example, it does not mean it apply for everyone, like every 10 customers, let's say, who are happy, maximum 1 to 2 are going to go to your application. The second we use our tools to push them to give a rating, we go up to 6 and 7 out of 10. But if you left them, really only the negative customers are going to speak with you. You can run all of those tests. You can do all of the stuff through the push notifications, through the app rating, app gallery rating, iOS rating, or even Android. Here you will find and you start to see that people are really have a good feedback. And how to make it simple. They don't, if you let people write a description about what they found, it will be very hard. You'll not get a lot of rating, but if you make it simple, like the Uber way as an example, you're happy 4 to 5, give you just pre-answered questions, you'll start to get a lot of rating. So I totally agree with you on this. You need to push your customers, happy customers, to give a good comment about you, because they will not.
Presumably the downside of that, though, is that you don't get as much feedback yourselves, that you're just getting the 5 stars on the app gallery, but you're not actually finding what made them happy or what made them less happy. It's that must be the flip side of it, no? Yeah. So now again, we're really running out of time now, and I'm starting to get angry messages from my colleagues, but I'd just like to touch on one thing before we go, which is social channels and the way that sort of social, and I think that it follows on quite nicely from what you were saying there, is that we were talking about sort of in-gallery reviews and the reviews of your apps and things, but you know, the biggest sort of review platform out there is the social channels. So how do you amplify your sort of your brand engagement through social? How do you get that to work? Do any of you have any top tips? I think that Ahmed, you've seen an awful lot of brands and an awful lot of apps, and how do the good ones amplify their success and their engagement through social channels?
Well, let me first start by saying that according to a recent study for Statista, social media usage is one of the most popular right now. There are over 3.6 billion people worldwide that use social media. So it's very likely that a big portion of any brand audience is using various social media channels at the same time. And the best way or the best case studies we've seen from different brands or different apps using social media, it's the first that they need to be very engaging to their audience through social media. Don't be spammy. Don't post the same post, for example, 2-3 times in a row, just to abuse this channel and try to give the users a way to see other content as well, not only yours. Set a goal, set an objective for that channel. Make sure you understand really the audience that you have on that channel, because that might be not the same audience that you have in different channels. So don't just take just a paintbrush all your channels or all your communication messages in the same way as for different channels.
Joe, how do you find that social helps your users sort of engage, and how do you engage with them?
It's definitely relevant because, you know, within our product, we have options to share certain elements of the user experience on social channels. So for me, it always comes back to product. If you have a great product and the user has a good experience, then they're confident to share, and you know, they become advocates of the product itself. So I think our focus with Steppy is to just make sure the product is as good as it can be, and that we continue to make improvements to it, and the advocacy will follow. So it's important. It's something that will definitely become more important as our business continues, and the more users that we acquire, the more that, you know, they'll share the product. And as we add more social elements to the community side of what we do, it will become even more important for us as well.
And finally, Amr, is that similar for you? I mean, you've got quite a lot of users. You've got so, you know, is the social aspect to the brand engagement?
I think the rating, people sometimes don't think how powerful their mentions on social media. So sometimes when someone complain or just put a small post that he have a bit of bad experience, really this can go to our chairwoman as example. So we take everything serious, really. So I have the same experience myself. I have a small problem with one of the banks. The second I posted my experience, I got a call in 2 hours. So I think especially in Dubai, this is taken very serious, and we take everything very serious. We have a team that follows the rating on apps. We have people follow the rating. So I have with the DevOps team and operation team focus on what the mention, what's the social, what's the challenge, what's the problems, why people are complaining, and they try to solve it. So now mentioning or social media is very powerful, and if the customer have any rights, he can solve problems on even social media much faster than a phone call. So we are trying, with coming of the WhatsApp as example as well, it will make our life much, we can get extra channels that people can speak about it, but I can see that social media, very simple, is a very, very powerful, and all the companies are taking care of this, not only Landmark, everyone take care of this. So it's very powerful, and we need to take care of it, and it's an effective channel for sure.
Well, thanks a lot. Now, we're absolutely out of time, but I think there's been a lot of really interesting stuff to talk to there. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed having such a sort of wide range here. We've got Ahmed from a sort of, you know, from the side of Huawei and looking at things from the sort of the bigger mobile ecosystem. We've got Joe and Steppy from the sort of app side of things, and we've got Amma from. I know that I keep calling you a bricks and mortar. You're not a bricks and mortar retailer. You're the digital guy, totally on that. But a lot of sort of transformation story.
Side, but we are mostly focused on that digital side.
Absolutely. But we've said a really nice sort of thing, and I think that there's a lot of things that we've looked at, and I think that sort of if I can just sort of pick up on a couple of things, it seems to be that when it comes to sort of sort of keep communicating on maybe under promise and over deliver, or at least manage expectations, share the good and deal with the bad. Don't just sort of brush it under the carpet. And that seems to really sort of get the consumers in. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to leave you there and move on to the second panel now. But I was joined by Ahmed Aldemeri, who's the Senior Operations Manager at Huawei App Gallery, Joe Franklin, who's one of the co-founders of Steppy, and Amma Abalinin from who's the head of growth and Martech at Landmark Group. It's been really interesting, and do look forward to continuing this conversation with sort of amongst the campaign community, and hopefully twisting some of your arms into writing for us and so on. So thank you so much for that. And I'll bid you farewell and welcome our second panel now. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Bye.
So thanks a lot. That was really interesting, and some quite sort of technical stuff there, and some good, really sort of practical insights as well. Now we are looking at brand engagement, and and this has given me us a great excuse for our second panel, which we're calling the winning formula. And I'm going to be hosting this as well, I'm afraid. And I do warn you, for those of you with the delicate disposition, there will be a song in this that you will be humming for the rest of the day. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my panelists. I'm joined by Akriti Goel, who is the Strategy and Data Director for Middle East and Africa at Shield. I'm joined by Mayan Alkan, who is the Associate Creative Director at TBWA Rad, Dubai. And I'm joined by Karen Coetzee, who's the owner and producer of Central Films. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And because I think that I saw that a couple of you made a trademark campaign appearance, possibly in the middle one. Also, I don't know whether anyone can see Karen's holding slide of her waving at sheep, which is one of the most, was that you that had that holding slide?
Yeah.
That was absolutely fantastic. Not at all, it was absolutely fantastic. Not enough, we don't get enough sheep on our webinars. So yeah, so just to set some context for this panel, I asked each of you to pick an ad that you thought really worked in terms of brand engagement, and also one that's garnered a lot of praise, but that you feel is perhaps overrated. We gave this a try a couple of weeks ago, and it was really fun. So I'm looking forward to trying it again. This time, though, I gave you a decade each. And it's going to be interesting to see which aspects of the ads seem like they're universal, which are of their time. You know, what's aged well, what's aged badly, what's similar between the ads, what's not. For the older ads, would they work today? For the modern ads, could they have worked in another time and another cultural setting? And we're going to go decade by decade. It's going to be the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. So without further ado, and definitely falling back to my technical abilities, I'm going to try and play the first ad. I won't tell you what the brand is, but I will tell you that it was made in 1992 by HHCL. This is Karen, who's on the 1990s. So we're going, so you get to go first. And so I'll play this ad, and let's see who remembers this.
Hello, Johnny. I think we might use a video replay here.
Super, Ralph. Let's do that.
Oh, yes, we could be in for a quintessential Tango Chase sensation here. Why, yes, Tony, let's look again.
Yes, Ralph, the big orange fella ran in from the left, and he gives him a good old slapping.
It just illustrates the bite and buzz of real oranges in Tango.
Yes, Ralph, super taste sensation, smashing drink, lovely.
You know when you've been tangoed.
Now,
Oh, so funny.
who remembers that? That was, it's interesting. I mentioned this in the office, and it's very much a British ad. As I say,
Yes, exactly.
It's Tango Orange Man, it was called. You can see why. Tango's a fizzy fruit orange drink. My most useless piece of advertising trivia that I'm really proud of knowing is that that voiceover at the end with, you know, when you've been tangoed, is Gil Scott-Heron, the musician who did the song, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. So one day I'll win a
And if that isn't cool, then what is?
Absolutely. So why did you like this, Karen? What was, what do you like about it?
You know, the first thing I loved was that, I mean, I love stupid humor. So this, when I first saw it, I mean, it really cracked me up. So I loved it because of that. I mean, and I'm not sure that that's particularly because it's a British ad, because I mean, I'm South African, but I just thought it was really funny. And then just doing some research about the ad is, was that basically, I mean, how this ad came about was that at the time, it was a really tired brand. And so obviously, what's it called? Brivik owned the brand. They wanted to really turn it around. And the one thing that people loved and that it scored a lot in research was that it was just an excellent tasting drink. So the client's brief to the agency was to show the hit of real orange in Tango. And so then the Orange Man was born. And I think it was really brave because at that time, I mean, a lot of the ads like Coca-Cola was going more to big basketball players, and Pepsi was Cindy Crawford. So the ad agency, I think, were really brave and probably tuned it really into kind of UK humor to come up with this. And I think that the ad or the campaign could have gone either way. And I think I'm not even sure that they knew that it was going to be a complete success. So I appreciate it on that level of how of making it and putting it out there. So, and I think it did well for the sales.
Mayan and Akriti, had you guys seen that ad before we started sharing it, sort of in the group? Did either of you know it?
So I hadn't seen it at all, but I definitely enjoyed it because it's very different to the soft drink advertising standards back in the day. It disrupted this whole cause and effect kind of storytelling where, you know, you have the drink and then something beautiful happens. And so in this case, I just did it in a very fresh way, very different way for the time, and very memorable mostly. So I quite like it.
It rather makes me think of the Cadbury Gorilla ad in its sheer mental randomness, although I suppose there is also a little bit more product placement in this. But I mean, when there's an ad, Karen, you said that it could have gone either way. Do you really, I mean, it strikes me that when there's an ad as random as this, it's hard. Can you think of any examples of random ads that don't work? I quite like, or do they just disappear without a trace? Is that the whole point? What could have gone wrong?
I mean, the next ad that I'm going to play, I think, was also quite weird in its randomness. But remember that this came out of the time of the 90s. So in the UK specifically, it was quite an anarchic time. It was punk rock. I mean, it was really different. It was really on the edge. So whatever was, you know, what was happening in Britain at that time, I think that this totally spoke to it. And yeah, I think it was just excellent for its time.
And also the commentator angle, you know, like choosing this commentator style as a VO back then, you know, it's very interesting.
Yeah. And then with my producer's hat on, just looking at it as well, I mean, such a great idea. And it probably cost like $10. I mean, really cheap to make and just excellent.
But I'm not too sure that it's the absurdity that makes this ad interesting. You know, I really think that how were they able to personify this abstract sensory experience that you get when you have tango? You know, like Karen, you mentioned that people, when they had the drink, they loved it. And it really felt like a slap of orange in your face. And now every time you think about the brand, you're gonna remember that experience, and you can imagine that experience without even having ever experienced the brand and the product. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. A real kind of a visualization of the taste.
Going to school in the UK in the 90s, I got slapped a lot before I'd even met girls, and but by other people just running up to, kids would be running up to each other, just slapping them across the face and shouting, "You've been tangoed." And I mean, apart from the sort of undertones of violence, that's some great branding. That's an actual physical reminder of the brand, day in, day out.
Absolutely. I mean, exactly. I mean, they were kind of there before, Google got Googled, and us with kind of tango got tangoed. So they kind of like it became a verb. So I suppose in that way it was pretty good. Mm.
Let's move on to your next ad. This is one that you think is more overrated, maybe, or missed the mark a bit, and it'll be fun to discuss this. So again, let me try and play it. Hopefully I've got the right one, and bear with me on this.
Let me tell you what bugs me about human endeavour. I've never been the human in question. Have you? Mankind went to the moon. I don't even know where Grimsby is. Forget progress by proxy. Land on your own moon. It's no longer about what they can achieve out there in your behalf, but what we can experience up here in our own time. It's called mental wealth.
So again, a really slightly surreal ad. That was I didn't actually jot down the year. I don't know. Do you know the year for that, Karen?
Yeah, it was just at the end, 1999.
That's it. Yeah, and it was Mental Wealth for PlayStation by TVWA London.
Yes.
And now again, as I think it's interesting, because I did say earlier that I think random ads often work well, but what do you think this was trying to do, and why do you think it didn't quite make it?
I mean, I'm really divided on this ad, because I mean, I remember seeing this ad and thinking that it was so super, super cool. I'm just not sure whether that tagline was on it when it was first launched, because I think part of that ad when it came out was that nobody, like, it just had the icon of the PlayStation, so you weren't told that it was PlayStation. So I'm not quite sure that last tagline was added from the very beginning, but I don't know whether it's just being like weird for weird's sake, but maybe that's kind of what they felt they needed to do at that point. I mean, at the end it was kind of like, like, and so what? So for me, it kind of, I think it created a lot of stir, and obviously there were so many ads afterwards created by Sony that were really obscure and controversial for controversy's sake, and I'm just not a big fan of that, and it didn't come to me as something that really did as much for the brand as if they put all that money into some other kind of idea.
Was this them sort of starting a controversy for controversy's sake type thing? Because I know that, I mean, it was partly sort of showing off the ability to sort of morph faces. That I did a quick bit of research on this, and I saw interviews with the poor girl who was in it, whose name I can't remember, but she kept saying people thought I actually looked like that, and the whole point. Her
name was Fifi.
There you go. That's another good bit of, when we have the campaign pub quiz, all these will be in there. I mean, the thing is, yeah, go on.
Sorry, so I was just thinking, I mean, obviously this was also when, I mean, I don't know if you remember Chris Cunningham and all of his music videos. He was the director of this TV commercial. So he came from, the Apex Twins and Bjork and all that kind of strangeness. So for sure, from a music video angle, that was, I mean, I was really into music videos in the 90s. So that, and I shot tons of music videos at that time. But you know, that it was a fantastic visual movement. So speaking to that age group with that visual medium and with that technique, I mean, probably was bang on. I just think in the end, I was just like, okay. And
So
let's go play a game. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, my takeaway from it was that, you know, it looks really cool and it's quite fun, but until the PlayStation thing comes up at the end, I had no idea what it was about, and I still don't know how it related to PlayStation. I'd be interested to hear mine and Akriti's take on it, and whether you were looking at that and thinking as Karen was, so what, or whether you were looking at it going, that's the best ad I've ever seen, or what did you think? Akriti, let's go to you first.
You know, I hadn't seen this ad before, and I must have watched it 10 times. And every time I watch it, I'm like, what are they trying to get at, right? It's one of those things, the more you watch it, you realize that there's some sort of a genius in the absurdity. But I think the absurdity, the execution, the weirdness of the character, the visual effects that they've used has become bigger than the message itself. It really required a lot of researching to try and understand the message, which was all about sort of changing the perception of gaming being from, you know, something that you do in your basement versus something that's really challenging your mind and owning that space for gaming. But I think that message was completely disappeared. And I remember reading, I think I was reading the same thing that you were, Austin, where they spoke about how this poor girl was being harassed by people and by news outlets. The entire story became about the girl and PlayStation, and the message just disappeared in that entire thing.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Mayan? Did you?
Yeah, so I actually quite enjoyed the randomness of it. The fact that even the fact that it has nothing to do with the product at first sight, you know, it's like, okay, like Karen said, like, so what do you want from me, kind of. But maybe the message was just too much out there, too unrelated to even the whole gaming experience, to an extent that the connection was not, it was difficult to be made, basically. But the message itself was actually quite beautiful. Like, I really like the message. I just feel like it was too far up there and too hard to get. And yeah,
I mean,
but it is a very interesting execution.
One thing you mentioned, Karen, that of course I hadn't really thought about, and I feel this is how we sort of change with the times, is that of course you're right. Back then, gaming was something that you did in your, you know, in your basement, and it was sort of, you know, it was nerdy boys with thick glasses who were doing it, and you know, there wasn't this sort of mainstream acceptance of gaming and things. So maybe this was sort of the start of those conversations around it. It was definitely sort of, it was around the time that Sony sort of and other people started to have the idea that maybe gaming isn't just for the geeks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think one of the things I read was that PlayStation, you know, at that time, they really felt they needed to break through because people were just getting complacent about gaming, and they wanted to come across as really rebellious and nonconformist. And I think that they held that view through from the late 90s right through the 2000s with all the ads that they brought out. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a gamer, but and I don't know kind of where PlayStation sits, but I think they're probably pretty up there still, no?
I think so, yeah. Anyway, we're going to have to wrap up we're going to have to dial forward on our time machine and go on to Mayan's. That's the 90s, done and dusted. So now we're we're into the Blair years. We got so Mayan got the 2000s, and so this first ad that I'm going to show, I think that it will be well known to a lot of people, and it was one of the sort of iconic campaigns of the 90s. It was done by, of the 2000s. It was done by Ogilvy and Mather in 2004, I think, this particular execution, but it was a whole brand platform that I think still exists today. We'll come back to it in a minute, but let me just play it and see what you think. Very quiet, please. Cameras, and recording sound. So that was the Dove campaign for real beauty. It was done by Ogilvy and Mather 2004. And as I say, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's still a big platform for them today, isn't it? Or have they dropped it now?
No, absolutely. Like the year after year, they continue to do great work based on this platform. And so this film Evolution is just like one of the many things they've done, but it's pretty emblematic of the message of it. So what I really liked about the entire campaign, so not just this film, are really two things. One is the insight, you know, it's rooted in this very profound universal insight that I guess most people will relate to. You know, we all tend to see our imperfections as opposed to our, you know, good sides. And then that insight was also, you know, informed by true data, by fact. So their PR agency, Edelman, at the time, they did a study and across 10 countries, I think, and they found that only 4% of women actually consider themselves beautiful. So, you know, let that sink in, like just 4%. And so the agency saw an opportunity there to change perceptions, and rightfully so, I believe. And so what they did, so that brings me to my second point, which is the execution. So, which in my opinion was really ahead of its time and truly disruptive. So the issue they wanted to target is the repetitive use of these unrealistic, unattainable images, these beauty standards that are up there that nobody can ever reach. So what did they do back in 2004? You know, they use these completely unretouched images of these conventional, you know, real life models, and they put them out there for the world to see, you know, and that was quite stunning for the time. And they selected real models, like actually to cast these people. They went to like places like malls and streets, you know, to find these everyday kind of people. And so when women looked at these billboards, they were able to see themselves in them. They could relate for once, you know. They actually saw people that are still attractive, but, you know, like likable, familiar, all that kind of stuff. So in doing so, they totally changed the culture of advertising for the beauty industry and really fought and challenged these false stereotypes, you know. And that for me is a very big success factor. And a kind of a testament to this, the success of this campaign, is the fact that today, if you look, like no beauty brand can now come and put these perfect images back out there. Some still do, but they're not going to succeed. You're not after Dove Real Beauty, you know. And then to the point of engagement. So Evolution, the film we just saw, that was that film went viral before viral was even a thing, you know. Like that was 1 year after YouTube launched. Like imagine. So that was just truly beautiful. And then they had a series of billboards also that featured these real women, and they had tick box options. Again, back then, there was no Instagram, no polling option, nothing. So they put these real women out there and had like two options, like fat or fit, or gray or gorgeous. And people could vote, but how? They put a phone number down there on the billboard, and you could actually text your votes to that number.
Oh, wow.
And the percentage which would appear next to the billboard. So it was a way to engage with the audience back then. And in my opinion, the reason they engaged is because they could resonate with the insight. They could relate to the entire concept, and it just touched them, you know? Yeah.
I think it changed the fashion industry. It changed the advertising industry itself. I mean, do you think there was the only thing the criticism that I've heard most of it, though, is one of hypocrisy, that you know, that it's one brand among many, and you then have other sort of sister brands and so on that are not following this. But I suppose it was sort of putting a foot in the right direction. Yeah, do either of Karen and Akriti, do either of you want to sort of weigh in on this, or should we move on to do you have?
Just one point from my end, and this is the conversation that we always have when we speak about Dove and some of their earlier communications, is that I think they had a potential of unknowingly alienating some women. So on one hand, you are celebrating curves, but what happens to those naturally skinny women? How are you making them feel, right? Or on one hand, you're shunning makeup, but what happens to those women that actually want to celebrate and enjoy that transformative power of makeup, right? So, and I think as Dove progressed, especially when I think about Dove sketches, I think that was the one where they had the artists come and do sketches about women based on what their perception of their self is versus what someone else's perception is. That I think was more of an inclusive message. So I think Dove's campaign itself has had an evolution where they've started being more inclusive in their messaging. So I think that there has been a change in that.
And I think, one of the key things is that they were the first people just to start a conversation about all of this. So I think that was important and real testament to Dove on the longevity of this campaign. It just hasn't stopped, and it's just metamorphosized itself and become so many different things. And it's from starting at this point, there's been so many platforms that have just spun out of this as a central idea. And I just think it's amazing for that.
Can I ask a controversial question? I always like doing this when we're speaking about Dove. How many of us actually buy Dove?
Ooh, I have done.
I do. I do for sure.
Why? Is it related to when you buy it? Do you think of Dove? Do you think of the brand in terms of the campaign for real beauty, or do you just buy it because?
I guess, yeah. No, in my case, I just like the products, but I do have a positive brand perception because I feel like they are standing for something that women can relate to. Yeah.
I have to say, from my point of view, I don't think I instinctively think about Dove speaking to me as a woman. I don't. I'm kind of, when I talk about it and when I engage with Dove, I really see it as kind of like there and as a conversation to be had, but it's not something that perhaps I instinctively as a person lean to answer your question, I agree. But I bought a couple of products now and again.
Yeah. And I think that's what sometimes we criticize and we look at things as people from the ad land, sometimes forgetting, is it really driving any impact on consumers? But that's a conversation for another day.
Well, but it's a great conversation to have, and I'd encourage us to sort of, we're about to run out of time, but it totally is. And also, brands have gone on for so long doing this that it's almost, there's a lot of brands that take the purpose thing and then ditch it quite quickly. And I think that falls into that trap. But I suspect that Dove's longevity of this campaign and its commitment to it has probably balanced out some of that, so that even if it wasn't selling as much products as it could have with something else, I think that over time, we'll definitely have this conversation another day. Watch this space. But I'm going to move on to Mayan's next ad, and as I say, I do warn you that you will be humming this. It's so brace your ears for an earworm. Here we go.
Invasion of the Bantanas.
Nice and cold.
Where on earth will they show up next? Fun, they'll find you.
Waiting for your chance to scream. That helps you beat the steam.
Don't you wanna? Invasion of the Bantanas.
And all that plaster, drink some faster, faster.
Where on earth will they show up next? If you're not having fun, they'll find you.
so hot and furry. You need that in a hurry.
You could be next.
Don't you wanna?
Right, I think I showed at least 2, possibly 3 executions there, but it got so far inside my head that I couldn't stop it. So what is it that you, Marianne, you picked this as your, as an ad that didn't quite hit the mark, and we have been laughing about it as a group discussing it. So what do you think it was trying to do, and why do you think, and how do you think it got it wrong?
So yeah, so I feel this campaign is like a case study in what not to do. You know, it's just like terrible on all fronts. So in my opinion, I'll tell you why. So first of all, to their credit, they got a jingle that people remember for sure. It's very earwormy, you know, so that's good for them. It did carve out its own place in pop culture because actually they had 5 different roasters of Fantana generations. That means it was quite successful, right? And they even did a nationwide casting call to, you know, cast the 4th Fantana and all that stuff. So it was very engaging. People interacted with it. It was parodied a lot. You could even download the jingle as a ringtone. So in terms of engagement, it did, I guess, you know, do its job. But to me, why it falls flat is there's just no story. Like they did try to give it a spin where it's like these Fantanas came from an island, which is Fantana Island, like very original. And then they were discovered by this mogul who was washed ashore because his yacht drowned. So, you know, they tried to give it a backstory, but it's just like so forced. It feels like somebody came up with this in 5 minutes. And then, but more importantly, so the story is superficial and forced, and then there's no connection between the Fantanas and their existence and the drink. So they have no reason to be, these Fantanas. There's a lot of sexual innuendo, you know, with their outfits, and then the jingle, obviously. The jingle itself is very shallow, condescending to the audience, in my opinion, and it's just very lazy advertising, honestly.
It's really fun to have this one actually at this point in the conversation, because this was Ogilvy and Mather again. It was 2002, so 2 years before the Dove campaign that we just saw. But it was also about 8 years after the Tango adverts that we saw at the start, which was another carbonated orange, you know, orange flavored drink. So there's sort of 2 ways to sell a very similar product. I mean, certainly the jingle got into my head, and I'd say from an engagement point of view, that seems to be sort of part of it, that if I'm humming that, it's definitely sort of gonna put it there. The sort of sexual innuendo and things might have been a bit of its time, certainly, and you wouldn't get away with that today. And compare that with Dove 2 years later from the same agency, it's completely contradicting each other. But do you, Kriti and Karen, do you think it, what do you think of it as an ad?
I don't, go ahead, Karen.
No, you go, Kriti.
Okay.
Kriti, you go first, and then Karen.
You know what? I don't hate it that much. I didn't realize this backstory. I think that backstory was probably unnecessary to the campaign, right? When I see that ad, I remember 4 ladies, that quartet. So I know that there are 4 flavors, and the jingle is stuck in my head. Is it brilliant? Probably not. Does it do the job? Probably yes. You know, and that's where I will leave it at.
So, Karen, what do you think?
I'm just thinking about whether in the 2000s, I mean, did hot chicks sell stuff? Do you know what I mean? I mean, having good, sexy women in ads, I mean, that was where advertising was going. So I think it totally played into that and probably worked well for it. I mean, just doing research about Fanta versus Tango, I mean, in the beginning of the 2000s, Fanta won over Tango, you know, and then they came up with this idea and it worked extremely, extremely well, as you said. But the thing is that they were, I mean, soft drinks are for teenage kids, right? So, I mean, this worked, but I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like only men buy these drinks, and also, I think it's just a bit misplaced. I mean, I thought when I first saw it, I thought this is just terrible. I mean, I'm not sure that this ad would work today, but at all. I mean, I don't think you could put this on the screen today, but certainly, I mean, in the 2000s, that was probably right where it needed to be. I mean, the sales showed it, so there was something in it, I suppose.
I'm gonna have to move on quite. Oh, sorry, no, go on. Were you about to say?
No, that's it.
No, okay, right. Well, I'm going to move on to Akriti's choices now, and we're moving into the 2010s. And now we're going to go straight from the potential objectification of women to what I suggest might be the flip side of that coin. And this is by Wyden and Kennedy from 2010. So right at the end of the right at the start of the 2010s. So let's see this one. I think again it will be a familiar one to many of you.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell. What's in your hand? Back at me. I have it. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diamond. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
So funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
Hysterical.
I'd forgotten I was rewatching that earlier, and I found myself laughing out loud. It's again slightly absurd, and it came out of nowhere again. Oh, well, I mean, Akriti, why do you like it? Why did you choose it?
I mean, everyone's reaction when we were just watching this right now, it's one of those iconic campaigns that just makes you smile, right? And when I see it these days, yes, there is that slight undercurrent of toxic masculinity, but we can park that aside. I think there were a few things about this campaign that was absolutely brilliant, right? First, obviously, the insight that Wyden and Kennedy had when they were doing research, they realized that body wash was actually being purchased by women. So they decided to go away from a very male-centric advert targeting men and try to convince women to buy Old Spice instead, right? So that in itself was brilliant. Oh, yeah. So that in itself was quite interesting. And then I think from a timing and channel perspective, it was beautiful. So they launched this campaign just 2 days or 3 days before Super Bowl. So they consciously chose to not advertise during Super Bowl where their competitors would be. They went a few days before that. And instead of spending all of that money on a TV ad, they went on social media for the purpose of driving two-way communication. And mind you, this is 2010, right? 2010
I was about to say, this is 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly. 2010 TV was still to a certain degree king, and they chose social media because they could already foresee the kind of conversation that would be sparked because of this campaign. And, conversation was sparked, if I'm not mistaken, I think there were around 20 million views just within the first 3 days, which is exceptionally remarkable. And the content itself was just so quirky. The guy is very handsome, so the character is really good. And the transitions, they just really kept you hooked. But I think what I absolutely love about this campaign is that despite the success of the first video, they didn't just stop there. So they started getting all of these comments and tweets and people reacting, and they actually created a response campaign. So they created, I think, around close to 200 videos responding to individual comments. Everything from, yes. I believe they sent one to Demi Moore. I believe someone had tweeted being like, oh, will you help me convince my girlfriend to marry me? So the character actually went and created a video asking the girl to marry the guy, and she did. So, it just it went on its own life. That. Yeah, and it sort of created this cultural cachet, which I think is so remarkable. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a Tide ad recently called Not Just a Tide Ad, and they used the same character. So
really?
Imagine,
what was he? He was a sportsman, wasn't he? He wasn't, I'm trying to remember. I seem to remember something like I'm sure I read something ages ago about him being a sort of B-list sports player of some sort, or is he just an actor?
I would not know.
All of us will be Googling that.
Exactly. To me, he's just the Old Spice man, the iconic.
I mean, whatever
Old
he
Spice.
was before, that's what he is now. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and also interesting that he was a black, that the main hero was black, and that also sort of broke and worked into diversity. So I think that there's also hats off to that as well, which I thought was great.
yes.
As a hero in that time.
Yeah. Has anybody, right, so I'm going to turn Akriti's question earlier back on you guys. So I always used to think of Old Spice as being a bit of a sort of old man's deodorant, and that sort of, and I think that was one of the things they were trying to break with this. And I've seldom bought it, but have any of you ever bought Old Spice for a man in your life?
No,
I bought it for my father
in
the early days.
Definitely a man in your life. I mean, there you go. So,
but also, this campaign, I mean, it was, whereas like Tango was really UK based, and Old Spice, I mean, this ad was predominantly executed mostly in America, but it reached South Africa. I mean, I think it was quite global in where it got to. It's like the Fantanas, I never heard about the Fantanas until Mayan shared it, but for sure, this ad, Old Spice, it reached so many corners. It was great.
Like the campaign for Real Beauty. Yeah.
Yeah. What's nice about this is also that, this is a campaign that keeps on giving. You can keep building on it, create interactions with the audience, and it just has so many legs. And I feel that's what makes it so successful, and thereby also creates this relationship with the audience. You kind of feel the guy, and you kind of like, you could start a conversation right away. So yeah, very cool.
Well, I'm finally going to move on to, we're definitely running out of time. I think we're technically at the end of the thing, but we've got time to show Akriti's, I've got terrible timekeeping, but I'm going to show Akriti's final ad, which is one that you feel was possibly trying a little bit too hard. So this was done by David, I think between Sao Paulo and, Miami, I think, in 2014. Certainly it was done by the ad agency David. So let me just play this.
Burger King introducing the Proud Whopper.
What? So like it's a gay burger, or what is it?
I just don't really believe in the homosexual lifestyle.
I think it's cool. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's great.
Finally.
Yeah, it's about time.
Do gay people even eat fast food? Really?
What do you want?
What is the Proud Whopper?
I don't know.
You want to try the Proud Whopper? Would you like a Proud Whopper? Do you want to go with meat or without meat? Because we can go both ways.
Meat's my preference.
Meat's your preference.
It is.
Are they different? What is the difference?
I don't know.
It really does taste different. You don't taste it?
I still taste the Whopper. I think it's the meat. The meat tastes like more like sweeter. I don't know.
We are all the same inside. Is that it? It's the same burger.
Everything's the same on the inside, but it's just the outside. Oh my God, Emily, dude, she got it.
We're all the same inside. I like that. I like it too.
I cried in there because I was overwhelmed. A burger has never made me cry before.
You were totally crying.
Yeah, you were.
It makes me feel supported. It makes me feel proud. And it's just a burger, but I mean, it's baby steps the whole way.
We are all the same inside. I think this wrapper means that we all have the same rights. I love Until Monday!
Now, Akriti, you told me off for not knowing this one when I said that this was one that I hadn't seen, and you said that it won an awful, it cleaned up at Cannes and things. So obviously it was quite liked at the time. But what do you think it was trying to do, and why do you think where do you think it missed?
I don't know whether you guys remember when you watch the video, there's this old white bearded man, and he opens up the Whopper and he says, "Is that it?" And I feel like that succinctly summarizes my sentiment towards this campaign. Like, really, that is it. I'm all for the cause. I really appreciate the brand trying to do something, but you know, when you're a brand as big as Burger King, representation is just not enough. You can't just, I felt like it was such a short-lived, lazy, flippant concept, you know. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get into so much.
Don't hold back. Don't hold back. You tell us what you really think. Yeah.
I feel like, you know, you can't just adorn rainbow colors on your products and say, oh, I stand for it. That's just pure tokenism, you know.
We've just had a month of that.
Exactly, and I have the same sentiment towards most of those campaigns, especially big brands. You have the power to create a sustained conversation, even better, create a solution. And I feel they did none of that. You know, when I was watching it, I was like, what if they actually did something, you know, maybe do something where you're creating a happy kids meal and giving a toy that helps the young ones understand, so they're not bullying kids at school who may be discovering their sexuality. There's so much more the brand could have done. This just felt very lazy and convenient. That's it.
What do you guys think? I have to say, I'm inclined to agree. I feel it's such an obvious, easy sort of one, but would either of you disagree and say, no, it's brilliant and they really hit the nail on the head?
But I just wonder for 2010, in that decade, maybe, I mean, for us looking back at it now, if that had to come on, we'd go like, come on.
It was 2014, so it wasn't. So what's happening in 2014? Actually, brain dead now. Anything, I mean, before the pandemic doesn't exist. But
yes, right, the 2010s. Yeah, okay. So maybe that was, yeah.
Not that long ago. Just the other day.
It wasn't that long ago. It was. You're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. I think I agree with you. Then I mean, I quite liked it because it was. I thought it was a bit heartwarming, and I quite liked the fact that it was a dead simple idea, and also probably quite cost effective to do and communicate. I thought, and that the conversation could happen like around. Although I agree with you, maybe it does feel when I look back at it now, maybe a bit forced. You know, kind of looking at that. But essentially, when I first saw it, I was like, that's a really simple idea. It all happens around kind of a dining room table, which is where people discuss stuff. So I quite like that. But looking at now, maybe I feel it's a bit kind of forced. Yeah.
Mayan, do you think it was a simple idea leveraged well, or do you think it was trying too hard, or somewhere?
I think the best ideas are usually the most obvious ones, you know. So this is actually, because it's so simple and so obvious, like, oh my God, why didn't I think of this? It's quite, I think in terms of ideation, it's good. But I think it fell very short in terms of scale. Like doing this in one branch, you know, you're Burger King, you could do this in many branches at least, you know. That's one thing. So it's too small. And as to Akriti's point, awareness is at some point no longer enough. You know, and I also was reading about this, that like the LGBTQ community appreciates it more if you actually start a conversation on a national level, rather than just one branch in one city, you know. So it's just like, it's a missed opportunity in my opinion.
And it's not just it was one branch in one city. They chose one branch in San Francisco that was along the Pride Parade route. So you're preaching to the Texas choir. Exactly. Do that in Texas, and then we will talk. Then you have my respect.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on, Burger King. Yeah.
Oh, it always ends up picking on Burger King. I love these debates. Last time it was the Moldy Whopper. Now it's this one. So, look, we're out of time now, I'm afraid. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks a lot, and I hope that we can rope in more of you wonderful creatives out there in our coming issues. So I'd like to thank. Let me just check that I've got your names right. So thank you very much for joining me. That was Akriti Goel, who's the Strategy and Data Director for Middle East and Africa at Shield. Mayan Alkan, who is the ACD at TBWA RAD Dubai, and Karen Coetzee, who's the owner and producer of Central Films. That was, I really enjoyed this conversation. It was really fun. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people, humming that Fantana's song to themselves for the rest of the day. So, well, There's absolutely. So yeah, so thanks a lot, and thanks again to everybody else who joined us. We it was a couple of 2 hours of really good conversation, and I'd love to carry on these conversations, but luckily we do have Campaign Magazine. We've got a website, we've got a podcast, we've got more events like this. Sign up for our newsletters. Anybody who's in an agency or anything, by the way, top tip, sign up for the newsletter and always skim the get involved bit. That'll tell you if there's things coming up, if there's anything that you might be able to sort of throw your hat into the ring. Keep following us for insights, more great work, and more from all our panelists and other industry experts. Thanks again to our sponsors, Huawei. As I mentioned before, Huawei App Gallery is one of the top 3 app marketplaces globally, available in more than 170 countries and regions, and with more than 530 million monthly active users. And thanks to all you lovely people out there for attending. Stay safe, easy for me to say. Stay safe, everybody. I really look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.